any factors which is going to increase the pulmonary vascular resistance like hypoxia, hypercarbia, pain and the stress. Through the back door, it is again going to produce pulmonary congestion and develop symptoms. So with these things in the background, with this physiological knowledge, you should know how to manipulate these factors in such a way that you don't stimulate any factors which is going to produce pulmonary congestion either in the perioperative period as well as in the postoperative period to have a safest outcome. Okay, good. So now let's move on to your assessment, right? You have diagnosis of pulmonary stenosis, mitral stenosis, and this patient is 20 weeks, right? So
Yes,
how
sir.
do you manage this patient?
Sir, for managing this patient, uh, um, we first go for, after clinical assessment, we will suggest some investigations for this patient.
Okay.
And the investigations, complete blood count in the blood, complete blood count,
Okay. Investigate. You want to
liver,
do complete blood count. Fine.
liver function test,
Liver function test then.
fasting and post as routines, fasting and postprandial blood glucose,
Okay. Blood sugar then.
kidney function test.
Renal function test.
And in imaging, we will do an echocardiography to know about the left ventricular function, any clot, if there is any clot.
Okay. Left ventricular function, left atrium, and presence of any clot. Then.
And routine ultrasonography, which is
Okay,
prescribed
that's for
by
the
the
obstetric. Fine. You have investigated.
obstetric.
Fine. And in echo, you see mitral valve area of 0.8 centimeter square. And the peak gradient, okay, the diastolic gradient between left atrium and the left ventricle is roughly around 12 millimeters of mercury. Sorry, 15. Let's assume it is 15 millimeters of mercury. So what do you infer from this?
Sir, it is a case of severe stenosis.
Okay, what are the
And
criteria? What are the criteria to tell it is a severe stenosis? How do you get the severity of mitral
the
stenosis?
mitral valve area is less than, if it is less than 1 square centimeter, then it is it is severe stenosis. 1
Okay.
to 1.5 square centimeter moderate stenosis, and 1.5 to 2 square centimeter is mild stenosis.
Okay, it's mild stenosis. How do you, what are the other factors which can assess you the severity of mitral stenosis?
Sir, among other factors, the pressure gradient, transmitral pressure gradient, and the pulmonary hypertension.
Okay, can you tell me transmitral pressure gradient severity grading?
So transmitral pressure gradient, if in mild stenosis, it is up to 5, the pressure gradient up to 5 millimeter of mercury. 5 to 10, it is moderate stenosis, and more than 10, it is severe stenosis.
Okay, it is less than 5 in mild, it is 5 to 12 in moderate, and it is more than 12 in severe mitral stenosis. And one last gradient, which is the mean pulmonary artery pressure.
Mean pulmonary artery pressure, sir, up to 30 millimeter of mercury is normal. And in milder stenosis, it is less than 30 millimeter of mercury. 30 to 50, it is moderate stenosis, and more than 50, severe stenosis.
Okay, so from the echocardiographic findings, what do you infer?
That from echocardiography, we can see the size of the both
Okay, what is your inference? That is what I'm asking. What is the inference from the values which I told? So it is a severe mitral stenosis.
sir.
It's a severe stenosis, right? Fine. So how do you manage this patient?
Sir, first of all, for the rest of the pregnancy, I will give some medical management for the patient.
So initially, you're going to try medical management.
Medical
right?
management.
What medical
to
management
continue
you're
the
gonna try?
pregnancy.
Okay, what medical management you're going to try?
Medical management is full bed rest,
Okay,
salt restriction,
okay,
any factor which can aggravate or increase the heart rate, those factors are to be avoided. Any kind of stress,
okay,
patient's heart rate, to control the patient's heart rate, we can give beta blocker, calcium channel blocker.
Okay, beta blocker is the ideal drug indicated for controlling the heart rate. So what is the target heart rate you keep?
Target. The normal heart rate as
60 to 80,
adult.
right? Right, 60 to 80 is the heart rate you have to target, and you have to give your beta blocker dosage and titrate the drugs as such that you reach a heart rate between 60 to 80 per minute. Fine. Then what is the next treatment? So how does a beta blocker work basically in producing symptomatic relief?
Sir, beta blocker controls the heart rate.
Okay, by reducing the heart rate, it gives good time for the left atrium to
To
squeeze and empty
filling,
into the
better
left
filling.
ventricle. Okay, fine. Then
And if there is clot in left atrium, or if the patient is in hypercoagulable state, because
see,
pregnancy itself is
listen, just relax. Okay, this patient is in symptoms. Okay, first of all, you should give a symptomatic relief. So far, you have said your bed rest, you'll give salt restriction, you'll relieve all the precipitating factors. Fine. First symptomatic relief, you're going to give beta blockers. What is the next symptomatic relief? You have to relieve the symptoms, right?
Yes, sir. I give diuretics.
Yes. Okay. So once the beta blockers and once you control the heart rate, you're gonna give
Then
diuretics.
diuretics.
Okay. So why diuretics are given? What is the use of diuretics?
Diuretics are given to relieve the pulmonary congestion and pulmonary edema.
Okay. How come it reduces the pulmonary congestion? By reducing the preload. Okay. So by producing diuretics, you are reducing the preload in such a way that there is no pulmonary congestion. Fine. Then.
And then, sir, digoxin can be given also.
Okay. Is digoxin given in all patients with mitral stenosis?
No, sir.
Okay. Why are you giving this patient then?
When patients are not responding to the calcium channel blocker, beta blocker, then
is digoxin given to control the rate?
No, sir. It is for failure patients.
Does digoxin have any role in the failure in this patient? Why digoxin is given? This patient is in AF, right?
Or rate control.
Okay, this patient is in AF. Do you forget what case you're presenting, dog? This patient is in atrial fibrillation. Okay. So atrial fibrillation, as I said, any rhythm abnormality will acutely result in pulmonary congestion. Okay. So it is difficult to achieve rhythm control in patients with mitral stenosis. Why? Digoxin is mainly given to control the rate in atrial fibrillation and not for rhythm control. But digoxin is indicated only when there is atrial fibrillation. Okay. So rhythm, you cannot achieve sinus rhythm in mitral stenosis. Why?
Because there is abnormality in the distortion of the electrical conduction system due to stretching of the atrial wall.
Okay, so basically the problem is the size of the left atrium, which is not going to get corrected. Okay. So the size of the atrium, which is already stretched, is not going to correct acutely. So that is the reason which is triggering abnormal arrhythmias. So in that case, whatever digoxin is given to control mainly the ventricular rate. Okay. So it prevents. Okay. How does the digoxin work? What group of drug is a digoxin?
Digitalis group.
It's a digitalis drug.
Yes.
Okay. Derived from digitalis. Right. Fine. Well, how does it work?
Inhibits the sodium potassium.
Estelle, please be quiet, please. How does it work, doc? See, when you don't know an action of a drug and you give the drug, which means that doesn't make us any difference between us and the technicians. Okay. So whatever drug you give to the patient, you should know in and out of the drug. Then only you can manage anything issue which is happening with the drug, right? So digoxin, mechanism of action, how does it work, what complications produce, everything as an anesthetist you must be knowing. So how does it work? It blocks the sodium potassium ATPase channels in the conducting pathway. So by blocking the sodium potassium ATPase channels, what happens, So what does the sodium potassium ATPase channel normally do, doc? What is the normal function of this sodium potassium ATPase channel?
So, potassium, sir, I don't remember right now.
Okay, how much sodium it pushes out? How much, is it sodium pushing out or sodium coming in or what? Anyone
Sodium-
else?
Sodium is coming in. Side
Sodium-
Maintain the resting membrane potential.
Okay,
Right.
Three sodium.
Th-
Sodium
Three-
from the
okay,
cell and
in
two
and
potassium
potassium
come
is
inside.
pushed out.
okay, one at a time. 3 sodium is pushed in or pushed out?
In,
Push
pushed
it in.
Push the in.
Push it out from
In.
the cell.
Cell pushed out.
In.
Push it out from the cell and two
Okay.
potassium is taken in.
Yes, good. There are 3 sodiums going out from cell from intracellular to extracellular. 2 sodium, potassium is coming in, right? If you see here, both sodium channel and the potassium ions are moving against their concentration gradient. Remember, okay? Sodium intracellular is low, extracellular is high. But this, it is going to push the ions, mainly the sodium and potassium, against the concentration gradient. That is why you need energy, okay? So what happens when the sodium potassium ATPase channel is blocked? So there is going to be accumulation of sodium inside the cell. When there is accumulation of sodium, so this sodium will exchange with the calcium ions in the extracellular fluid. So sodium will go out because this channel is blocked. So whatever the sodium inside is going to push out and exchange with the calcium. So there is going to increase in the intracellular calcium level. So when there is increase in the intracellular calcium level, that will facilitate myocardial contraction. Okay. So since
Kindly repeat, sir. The voice is breaking. Kindly repeat.
okay, so the sodium potassium ATPase channel normally pushes 3 sodiums from inside to out and 2 potassium from outside to in. Since the ions are moving against their concentration gradient, it is requiring ATP. So when you block this channel, sodium potassium ATPase channel by digoxin, there will be sodium accumulating inside the cell because sodium is not pushed out now. So this sodium will exchange with the calcium from extracellular. So naturally, when the sodium is pushed out, calcium from the extracellular fluid is going to come inside. So there will be accumulation of calcium inside the cell that increases the intracellular calcium concentration. So there is more and more amount of calcium available in the sarcomere. So that facilitates increased force of contraction in the ventricular myocardium. That is the first thing. Second thing, at the AV node, okay, at the AV node, it produces 2 actions. One action is because of this ion channels which is exchanging, it slows the conduction in the AV node. First thing. Second thing, it is an indirect release the acetylcholine in the AV node. Acetylcholine is a parasympathetic mimetic. Okay, so that also reduces the AV conduction. So that is how it is reducing the ventricular rate. In addition, by increasing the calcium availability inside the cell, it improves the myocardial contraction. Okay, so this is how the digoxin works, and that is used in pregnant patients with mitral stenosis. It is used only when there is atrial fibrillation. Just for mitral stenosis alone, it is not used. Okay. So now in and out about digoxin. What are the signs of digoxin toxicity? When do you say ECG features of digoxin toxicity, and when digoxin is contraindicated? What are the drugs or what are the things which can precipitate toxicity in digoxin? So many things are there about digoxin. Go and read it out, please. Right. So we are in the treatment with digoxin. Then we spoke about diuretics. Then we spoke about beta blockers. What is the next treatment, doc? Let's tell guys,
Yes,
unmute and tell me whether able to clear this point, how digoxin works.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good, excellent. Right. What is the next treatment?
Sir, anticoagulation therapy.
Yes, good. This patient is in atrial fibrillation. So anticoagulants are indicated. So what are the indications for anticoagulations in pregnant patients?
So kindly explain what digoxin does at the AV level, AV nodal level.
Okay, I mean, you can see the recording, buddy, because it's already there in the recording. Don't worry, right? If at all there is time, I'll explain at the end. Okay, we have to move fast. Things discuss a lot of things. Okay, what are the indications for anticoagulants in a patient with mitral stenosis in
The
pregnancy?
patient, if the patient is in AF or any rhythm abnormality, if there is
Okay.
a clot
Patient,
in the
you're finding that patient is in AF 2 hours back. It's a fresh onset. Would you put him on anticoagulants? So only
Okay.
AF of more than 48 hours duration. right? Then only anticoagulation is indicated. Second indication, when the left atrium is more than 55 millimeters of 55 millimeter in size in echocardiography, though the patient is not in atrial fibrillation, you have to put the patient in anticoagulants. Secondly, when the patient gives previous history of thromboembolism. So these are the three indications in pregnancy in mitral stenosis. You have to put the patients on anticoagulation. Okay. So what is the best anticoagulant in pregnancy?
So we can give unfraction in the, if the patient is as the patient is in second trimester,
Okay.
we can give warfarin or
Okay. I'm asking
before-
what drug. Okay. What drug will you give to this patient? That's a simple question.
sir, unfractionated heparin or low molecular weight heparin.
Okay. You can give unfractionated heparin or low molecular weight heparin. Why not warfarin?
Sir, warfarin we usually give in prosthetic valve to prevent the.
So is it
and
not
the
given in the
patient is-
normal? Is it not given in atrial
Yes,
fibrillation?
can give, but in pregnancy, warfarin has some adverse effects like it
Okay.
causes
This
the
patient is in
embryopathy.
20 weeks, right? Can you give warfarin or not?
Yes, we can give.
Okay. Then why
After
did you?
12 weeks, we can give.
Okay. Then why did you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that you will not give warfarin? Can you give warfarin now for this patient?
After yes, sir, we can give now.
Okay. Can you give heparin or warfarin? Which you want to give?
Sir, I will go. I will give unfractionated heparin.
Okay. Why not warfarin first? I'm asking a very simple question.
Because
Both-
warfarin takes some-
Both heparin and warfarin can be given in second trimester, as you said. But why do you want to give injection? Because warfarin can be given orally, right? So it is easy to administer. Why do you want to
Yes,
give
sir.
heparin first and not warfarin? Anyone else?
Takes time to accept.
Onset of
3 days.
action.
Yeah, it takes 72 hours. Okay, it takes 72 hours to 90 hours to start its function, right? So that is why we give heparin when it is acutely presented for the first time. Okay, so the older school of thought is less than 12 weeks, you can give heparin. 12 to 34 weeks or the second trimester, 12 to 28 weeks, you can give warfarin. After 28 weeks, you can switch out to heparin. This was the older school of thought. Now, currently, in all trimester, heparin is best preferred. Most of the institute have stopped giving warfarin. You can give heparin in all the trimester, but after the introduction of the low molecular weight heparin, the usage of warfarin is completely stopped nowadays. But in the exams, for the completion sake, you can tell that you can give warfarin in the second trimester. Okay. What is the target INR you fix?
Sir, 2 to 3.
Okay. It is going to be, when you use heparin, it is going to be 1.5 to 2.5. When you use warfarin, it is going to be 2.5 to 3. Okay. So that is the target INR you fix in patients with atrial fibrillation. Okay. So this is how you manage a patient in failure, right? So you have treated it, patient is not responding.
Then to relieve the stenosis, we have to go for, sir, intervention or surgical method.
Okay.
That
What
is the-
interventions you can do?
Balloon mitral valvotomy or
Okay. Can give percutaneous mitral
yes, the percutaneous.
commissurotomy. Okay, that's the standard procedure done. Particularly in patients, if you pre-pregnancy, if you identify, you can do this. Or if these identify first time in the pregnancy, second trimester is the ideal time where you can go for percutaneous mitral commissurotomy. It has been shown to improve the symptoms as well as increase the mitral valve area more than 1.5 centimeter square. Okay, so that is the treatment preferred when the patient is not responding to conventional medical therapy. Okay, so this patient has improved. You have put her on anticoagulants and she's coming for delivery. She is admitted in the labor ward. How will you proceed?
Sir, until and unless there is an obstetric indication,
Okay,
we will we will go for normal vaginal delivery with graded epidural analgesia.
Okay, so what is the normal vaginal delivery? What are the anesthesia? What are the important goals to be met in normal vaginal delivery as an anesthetist?
During normal vaginal delivery, the labor-induced stress and the hemodynamic alteration are to be avoided, like
Okay,
pain.
reduce the hemodynamic stress. Fine, right? Then
Pain is to be controlled because it
Okay.
will further aggravate the stenosis and pulmonary congestion.
what is the pain relief option you will prefer for the patient?
Sir, we will, in this patient, we will go for epidural analgesia, labor
Okay.
analgesia.
Epidural labor analgesia. What are the dermatomes which supply the uterus? What are the dermatomes you cover for labor analgesia? In stage 1 and in stage 2. If you don't know about labor analgesia, that is again going to brutally impact in your exam. Okay. So what is the dermatomes you cover in the first stage, and what is the dermatomes you cover?
First stage,
T10 to
lumbar
11.
and lumbar.
There is no
and-
lumbar. Okay, tell me more precise. Which nerve root specifically?
L1 to S4, and in the second stage only sacral.
It is T10 to L1. Okay, it is T10 to L1 in stage 1, right? And L5 to S4 in second stage. Okay,
second
so
stage.
these are the dermatomes you cover, because unless you don't know which dermatome to cover, you can't identify which is ideal space to put the epidural catheter, isn't it? Right? So what are the anesthetic challenges of putting epidural in this patient?
And the epidural challenge.
Relax, okay? Gently relax. So this patient is in the 36 weeks. She is in labor and she's on warfarin,
The
which
patient's posture. Yes, sir.
was...
Patient.
Relax. Let me finish the question, okay?
Yes, sir.
So this patient is in labor. She is on warfarin in the second trimester, which was stopped yesterday, okay? And she is coming for labor delivery, okay? So now they are calling you for giving an epidural analgesia. First, tell me, what are the anesthetic challenges of putting an
The
epidural?
chances of bleeding and epidural hematoma, because patient was under anticoagulation therapy.
Okay, so what will you do then?
And labor already started.
Okay, what will you do then? You're checking
we will
INR.
first
INR,
check the
INR is
last-
2.5. INR is 2.5 now. What will you do?
Sir, we will check when the last dose of warfarin or
Yesterday morning.
heparin was given.
Yesterday morning. And the most recent INR is 2.5.
We will transfuse fresh frozen plasma, and simultaneously we will go for epidural analgesia.
Okay. So how long you have to wait when you give a fresh frozen plasma?
I don't know.
6 hours, okay? You have to wait minimum 6 to 8 hours after the FFP to give INR, okay? But this patient is already in labor. So what will you do then? You can encounter this type of situations in your clinical practice. So have you heard about PCC? What is PCC?
Prothrombin complex concentrate.
Prothrombin complex concentrates, okay? Okay, it is a powder form, right? It specifically or immediately reverses the effect of warfarin within 10 minutes. Okay, so generally after PCC, within 1 hour, we can start doing the invasive procedures. Okay, so that is the emergency reversal of warfarin effect, right? So you have given prothrombin complex, it is reversed. Now INR is 1.1. So now tell me, what are the anesthetic challenges for putting epidural in any pregnant patient?
as the patient is already in labor,
Okay.
it is difficult to make the patient sit for epidural catheter to put the epidural catheter.
Okay, fine.
So we need to patient positioning will be a bit difficult to
Okay, then,
make her lateral or to make her sit.
okay,
Next,
positioning issues then.
Next, due to pregnancy, there is epidural blood vessels are congested,
Okay,
and
Batson's
there is,
Batson's plexus. Okay, Batson's plexus are dilated, so the chances of bloody tap is
Bleeding.
very high. Okay, very high. Then,
high chances of intravascular injection also.
okay, that's fine. That's we
Okay.
discussed. Then, anything else? Anything anesthetic challenges you have to consider? Batson's plexus, positioning issues. Then,
Risk of epidural getting converted into spinal anesthesia.
okay, intrathecal migration. Fine. Why there is chances of intrathecal migration high?
Sir, because of the gravid uterus, the epidural space is also narrowed. Gravid
Okay,
uterus due to epidural space, and there is high chances of the needle migrates into the intrathecal space.
okay, fine. Narrow space. The most important thing is high CSO pressure. Okay, so that will cause a bulge in the dura. So with the narrowed space and the bulging in the dura secondary to high pressure in the CSF compartment, so that naturally increases the risk of catheter migrating into the intrathecal space. Then,
High level of anesthesia or analgesia.
okay,
High level of block. High level of block.
Why?
The same reasons are epidural space is narrowed, and there is
Okay.
increased pressure of CSF.
Compartment pressure or CSF pressure is high. Then, any other important thing in the putting an epidural?
Test dose.
Colon test
Hypertension.
dose, anything else?
Hypotension.
Hypertension, no, before that.
Palpation
Also-
of
So
space.
their dose requirement, okay? The local anesthetic dose requirement, okay, is 25% lesser than non-pregnant women. Okay, their sensitivity. The sensitivity of the neural elements to local anesthetic is very high. Okay, the threshold for block is very low, so they get easily blocked. So you have to consider only 75% of the dose which you use for non-pregnant ladies. Okay, because of high sensitivity of local anesthetic or the nerves to the local anesthetic, right? And of course, the hypotension is going to be very severe. Why?
As the patient is already already severely patient is mitral stenosis patient, so
Okay.
cardiac output is less, and the patient is and if we give the epidural or combined epidural, spinal epidural, there will be further decrease in the sympathetic vascular resistance, and
Okay.
it will further aggravate the
So this paper, pregnant patients normally will have a reflex sympathetic tone secondary to hypotension. Okay, so secondary to low cardiac output, particularly in the third trimester, because of the aortocaval compression, thereby reflex increase in the sympathetic tone in the lower limbs. So when that tone is immediately blocked by the local anesthetic given in the epidural space or in the intrathecal space, that reflex vasodilatation, the reflex vasoconstriction is completely lost. That results in exaggerated hypotension. In addition, this patient is mitral stenosis. They tend to have even more exaggerated hypertension because they have a fixed cardiac output. Okay, so we have to be very careful with handling the blood pressure while topping up the local anesthetic epidural, right? So how do you give labor analgesia? What drug you prefer for giving dose for labor analgesia?
Sir, after putting the epidural catheter, we will first check it with test dose.
Okay, test
Then
dose.
then we will give labor analgesia with we can give with 2% lignocaine.
Labor analgesia with 2% lignocaine. Are you sure?
Okay. Sir, we can also use the bupivacaine.
See, the question is, when this is given only for analgesia, right?
Yes, sir.
Would you use 2% lignocaine for the
Not
patient?
2%, sir. 0.2.
So what drug you prefer? What is the, have you conducted labor analgesia before?
No, sir.
Okay, so you don't have experience and that's the reason, all right? So you can use
0.125%.
0.125.
0.0625.
Yeah.
0.125. The standard dose in the Western country is 0.025 bupivacaine, right?
Plain.
Plus fentanyl, 2 micrograms per ml concentration. Okay, so this is a standard epidural used in majority of the Western country, right? So initial dose will be roughly around 8 to 10 ml. You have to give in a titrated form, particularly for this patient. Okay, so give 4 ml, see the blood pressure response, and then give subsequently 4 ml after 5 minutes, right? So then you can put a continuous infusion targeting a rate of around 8 ml, depending upon height of the patient, 8 to 10 ml per hour, right? So after starting the test dose or after starting the bolus dose, what do you to check?
We need to check for the if there is change in the heart rate.
Okay, check the hemodynamics. Okay, then
Check the level of sympathetic flow, sensory flow.
yes, doc, what do you do, doc? Next. So you have to check whether the block is working or not, isn't it? So check the sensory, check the autonomic system, and check the motor block. Okay. Generally, they shouldn't develop any motor block even after 6 to 8 hours of infusion. So if they are developing motor block, you should be very careful that it could be a possible intrathecal migration. Okay. So check the blood pressure every 3 to 5 minutes for the initial 30 minutes, right? So this is how labor analgesia is conducted. So there could be non-regional techniques of labor analgesia which can be asked in your exams. So just read those things also. Right. So labor epidural has been conducted. So you have relieved the stress. Now after 3-4 hours, the baby is about to get delivered. Okay. Baby crowning has been done. The obstetrician is calling you. Patient is complaining pain in the bottom. How do you manage?
The saddle block can be given. The
Saddle block can be given. How do you give a saddle block?
sir, to give saddle block, we have to make the patient in sitting posture.
Okay. So
Okay.
in some centers, why do the bottom pain occurs even after giving labor analgesia?
So due to pudendal nerve is not blocked, which supplies the pelvic
Okay. What is
floor
the pudendal
muscles.
nerve? What are the nerve roots for the pudendal nerve?
Pudendal nerve roots S
S2, S3, S4.
sacral segment.
I'm asking the nerve root value of pudendal nerve.
S3, S4.
S2, S3, S4.
S2, S3, S4. Does it get blocked in the epidural?
No, sir.
Right. So basically, the lowest sacral segment, S3, S4, which is a part of pudendal nerve, sometimes doesn't get covered. So that is why when the head goes and impinge on the pelvic floor muscles, they tend to complain pain. So how do you manage this pain?
Pudendal
block.
Pudendal
give-
nerve block.
We can give pudendal nerve block, or in some centers, they're practicing low dose spinal anesthesia. Low dose spinal anesthesia can be given just to block the bottom part alone so that the uterine contraction is intact. Patient doesn't produce any maternal muscular contraction, which exaggerates the mitral stenosis induced cardiac failure, right? From the obstetrician point of view, what is the most important step during the delivery?
So to cut short the third stage of labor.
Third stage or second stage? Third stage is placental delivery. Who wants placental delivery stage? It's the second stage, okay?
Second stage. Second stage.
So cut short second stage delivery. What do you do basically? How do they cut short second stage?
Sir, use of episiotomy and forceps
Okay, so we can do
deliver the
You can do instrumental delivery. At that point, your role is critical because if there is any pain, you have to give top up or low dose spinal, basically because pain is the most important factor which precipitates in acute pulmonary edema during the labor. Okay, so at any stage, try to make sure you are giving as much as pain relief. Okay, so before instrumental delivery, the obstetrician might ask you to give an epidural top up, or you can give a low dose spinal to facilitate instrumental delivery. What happens immediately after delivery? What is the most important thing? The cardiac
So
output.
auto transfusion of
Yes.
blood.
Okay, auto transfusion of blood. Okay, nearly 70 to 80% increase in the cardiac output happens immediately after delivery of the baby because of the auto transfusion. So that is the most critical point, or the more than 50% chance of having pulmonary edema is during the immediate after delivery of the baby. Okay, so at that time, just give diuretics, one shot of diuretics, right? Make sure the patient is not in having any pain. Control the heart rate with beta blockers. Okay. Good. So this patient is having an obstetric indication like delayed progress of labor, and this patient is coming for theater for elective or cesarean, semi-elective cesarean section. How do you manage now? What is your plan? GA or regional?
Sir, we can give graded epidural or combined spinal
See,
epidural.
when I'm asking this question in the exam, you have to tell what you will do. Okay, that is the most important thing. Tell me what you will do and substantiate why you'll do that.
Sir, I will give graded epidural in this patient. If the
Okay.
patient is undergoing elective cesarean section.
Okay, you want to give graded epidural. What
Epidural.
other regional anesthetic options are there?
Combined spinal epidural anesthesia.
Combined spinal epidural anesthesia, right?
And
So,
general.
why wouldn't you give general anesthesia? What are the advantages and disadvantages of giving regional anesthesia in this patient?
The general anesthesia in this patient.
Tell you about general
Actually,
anesthesia. Just tell me what is the advantage and disadvantages of giving regional anesthesia in this patient? Advantages.
the advantages are if we give regional anesthesia, there will be vasodilatation, and dilated vessels can accommodate the extra volume of blood after
Okay,
the
when there is
delivery.
vasodilation, won't
Transfusion.
it produce hypotension?
So it will produce hypotension, but that hypotension can be managed with graded epidural. It will not produce the severe hypotension or sudden severe hypottension. There will be
Okay.
slow. The
Any
hemodynamic
other
changes will be slow.
any other advantages of regional anesthesia?
The hazards of general anesthesia can be avoided because
Okay,
general
all
anesthetic
the
drugs,
hazards of general anesthesia can be avoided. Fine. Then
the deleterious effects of general anesthetic drugs on the fetus can be avoided.
okay, that when you say hazards of general anesthesia, it includes everything. Fine. Then
Good pain relief, sir.
excellent pain relief. As I said, that is the most important thing, right? So excellent pain relief. Pain relief is the most important factor because pain is a very, very important triggering factor for having a mitral stenosis induced LV failure. Okay, that's the first thing they expect you from the exam. So that's the excellent pain relief. Then
The epidural catheter can be continued post-operatively for
Okay.
pain relief in the post-operative period.
post-op analgesia is very important because up to 7 days postpartum, this patient can go for pulmonary edema anytime. Then increase uteroplacental circulation, placental blood flow, which is good for the baby, right? Increase uteroplacental blood flow. Low chance of thromboembolism, right? Because of the good venous circulation, right? Graded epidural will make only segmental block so that the calf muscle pump is intact. So the chance of venous embolism is very, very less. Okay. Now tell me what are the disadvantages of giving regional anesthesia in this patient?
The disadvantages may be the patient was already on anticoagulation, so there can be after epidural catheter there can be
Okay,
increased risk of bleeding,
issues with anticoagulation. Then
hypotension.
hypotension. can be severe, okay? Particularly when there is supine hypertension syndrome, along with this exaggerated vasodilatation can result in severe hypertension. Then
Accidental dural tap.
accidental dural tap, fine, maybe we can include. Okay, anything else? Disadvantages of giving
Okay.
regional,
Technical difficulties.
right? Technical, that doesn't come under disadvantages. Maybe okay, I'll include technical difficulties. Fine. Then control of airway and ventilation is not there. In case if there is acute pulmonary edema developing, right? So the control of airway and ventilation is not there at that point. Hemodynamic stability is poor, right? So these are the disadvantages of regional. Okay. Now the patient is refusing spinal. She wants only general anesthesia. How would you manage this?
Sir, we will
Okay,
counsel
fine.
the patient.
Before moving that, now tell me, how do you conduct a graded epidural?
Sir, after putting the epidural catheter,
Okay.
we will inject small doses of local anesthetic with
See, when I say how do you conduct, you should tell me what drug you use, what concentration you use, how much volume you use, how you use. All the 4 answers should be there.
0.1 to 5% bupivacaine with
I'm
fentanyl.
asking for anesthesia, cesarean section.
Oh, yes, sir. Then we will no, we will give 2.5%.
2.5%. Are you sure? Can you recheck your answer? What drug you are preferring for graded epidural? Have you done any cesarean section under graded epidural so far?
No, sir.
All right. So you can use 2% lignocaine, right? 10 to 12 ml, right? So 10 to 12 ml in graded doses. Okay, so you have to give, as I said, 3 to 4 ml, wait for 5-10 minutes, then again recheck it, then again give 3 to 4 ml. So maximum you can give up to 10 to 12 ml of 2% lidocaine. Or you can give 0.5% bupivacaine with fentanyl. Okay, not preferred much because bupivacaine is cardiotoxic, is not good. Or 0.75% ropivacaine, most preferred in Western countries, right? So these are the drugs which can be given for graded epidural anesthesia, not analgesia, anesthesia mixed with fentanyl, right? So always give graded, wait every 4 ml, recheck it, inject it. So what is the target sensory level you have to achieve to start a cesarean section?
So T6.
T6, okay. So until achieve T6 level, don't start the procedure. So check the sensory level and they achieve T6, you can start proceeding. So one other regional anesthesia technique is the continuous spinal catheter. Right, so these are the, okay. Now this patient is refusing spinal. She wants a GA. How do you proceed with the GA?
For general anesthesia, sir, we will take all the measures to control the hemodynamic surge during laryngoscopy and
Okay,
intubation.
what are the anesthesia goals? This is where comes your knowledge of the physiology. What are the anesthesia goals?
Avoid tachycardia, severe hemodynamic alteration.
Avoid tachycardia. Okay, tachycardia, as I said, it is going to produce pulmonary congestion. Then
Both increase in the preload should be avoided. Increase in the preload should be avoided. Decrease in the afterload should be avoided.
Maintain, right? Maintain preload. Maintain afterload. Maintaining the sense, it is means neither increase nor decrease. Okay, that is what the term maintain means. Then if you think of factors which precipitate pulmonary congestion, that will be the goals here.
Prevent fibrillation, arrhythmia.
Maintain sinus rhythm. Very good. Maintain sinus rhythm. If you understand the things which produce pulmonary congestion, this is going to be very easy. Then Tachycardia, afterload, preload maintenance, maintain sinus rhythm. Then,
Pain management.
Analgesia.
okay, analgesia, right. Avoid analgesia, pain management. Then,
Avoid hypoxia, hypocapnia.
as I said, what is the other factor which is causing pulmonary congestion? Pulmonary hypertension, right? So any
Pulmonary.
factors which is going to increase pulmonary hypertension, avoid it, like pain, hypoxia, hypercapnia.
Hypercarbia.
So these are the anesthetic goals. So the main things why you target these goals is because when you alter any of these things, that is going to eventually result in pulmonary congestion. Okay, right. So, right, how do you conduct general anesthesia in this patient? Let's move on. So this patient is coming and lying on the table. How do you conduct general anesthesia, doc?
Patient after the checking the all difficult airway is present or not. If
Okay.
all the
OT is entirely prepared, all difficult airway equipments, everything is prepared.
oxygen and machine
She-
checking, after machine checking,
Everything
will
is
proceed
checked. She is ready to get anesthetized. She is in front of you.
first pre-medication, before
Okay.
pre-medication,
Two
we
large bore IV access. All right.
pre-oxygenate.
Two large bore IV access. Then what do? You're gonna next attach monitors. Am I right?
Monitors.
Do what do you do inside the OT? Tell what you do inside the OT. What are the monitors you want to give?
The standard ASA monitoring, like
Okay.
patient's blood pressure, heart rate, ECG,
Okay. Then
saturation,
okay.
temperature.
What else do you want to do apart from the standard monitoring?
Fetal heart.
Fetal
Estelle,
monitoring.
please. Estelle, please be quiet. Please. Fetal heart. Then
Fetal heart, and as the patient is a cardiac patient, in
Okay.
this patient we will go for pulmonary artery catheterization for
see. Tell simple things first. Okay, which is accessible to you. Apart from
central
standard.
venous pressure monitoring, central
Okay,
venous pressure, and
CVP.
arterial blood pressure.
Okay, this is a simple thing they expect from you. They don't expect from you pulmonary artery catheter and all, right? Only when you tell these things, they'll ask what is next, right? So apart from standard ASA monitors, invasive arterial blood pressure monitoring is 100% mandatory, and a central venous pressure if possible. If in a tertiary institute, you can go for pulmonary artery catheter depending upon the severity. So this patient is in AF, severe mitral stenosis, ideally pulmonary artery catheter has to be instituted. Fine. So the monitors are attached. You see heart rate is recording around 80 and it is irregular. Blood pressure is roughly around 100/60 millimeters of mercury. Saturation is 98%. Right. How will you proceed now?
So heart rate is irregular.
It is irregular for quite long time. Leave it. Yes, monitors attached, IV access obtained. This is the reading in the monitor. How will you do then?
The beta blocker is to be given esmolol injection, esmolol
See,
for
patient is
irregular heart rate.
relax. Irregular heart rate, I said it will not correct because you can't correct the rhythm in patient with mitral stenosis because it is the left atrium size which will not come to normal unless you correct the mitral stenosis. Okay, so that's different. Now the heart rate is 80 per minute, which is irregular. Blood pressure is 100/60, saturation is 98%. How will you anesthetize this patient?
The next step is the anesthesia. I will oxygenate the patient. Pre-oxygenate
That is what they're expecting you, right?
3 to 4 minutes.
Pre-oxygenate for 3 to 4 minutes. Why?
For denitrogenation or fill the alveoli with oxygen only, and so
Okay.
that we can take the time of laryngoscopy while the patient will maintain oxygen.
Okay, in simple things, you can tell that the patient FRC is very low, so you have to adequately oxygenate. Pregnant patients FRC will be low, right? So you have to adequately oxygenate. That's the same. That's what they'll expect from you. Okay, right. So you oxygenate for 3 to 4 minutes. Then
Pre-medication.
okay. Is
Pre-medication-
pre-medications and all, no one follows nowadays. Leave it.
Sir.
Then,
Um,
good. You tell me what you do inside the
we
OT.
will-
That's it.
Then we will start inducing the patient for induction.
Okay.
As the patient is a pregnant patient, we will take up the patient as always in full stomach.
Okay.
So
Good. Excellent.
patient's aspiration prophylaxis is to be given. After giving aspiration prophylaxis, we will
What aspiration prophylaxis you can give?
sir, we will inject some and H2 blocker like ranitidine
Okay.
or
H2 blockers then.
H2 blocker and sucralfate syrup.
Not
Sucralfate syrup.
sucralfate. Not sucralfate.
Sodium citrate, 0.5
Okay.
m.
It is 30 ml of
Metoclopramide.
0.3 molar sodium citrate. Okay. So this is a standard aspiration prophylaxis followed in Western countries. Okay. 30 ml of 0.3 molar sodium citrate. It is mainly to maintain the pH more than 2.5 in the intragastric level. Okay. So this is the standard anti-aspiration prophylaxis given. Right. Fine. Anti-aspiration prophylaxis is given. Then.
And after that, we'll perform modified RSI
Okay.
to
So how
induce
do
the
you
patient.
perform? Yeah. How do you perform?
Calculating the dose of the drugs
Okay, tell
for
me
induction.
what drug you give, how much dose you give. This patient is weighing 80 kgs. Sorry, this patient is weighing 48 kgs, right? Let's roundly assume as 50 kg. Okay. This patient is 50 kg. Tell me what drug you use, how much dose you give.
Sir, we will give etomidate, and etomidate will
How much dose you give?
say-
What is the dose of etomidate? This is where the problem
point-
comes. This is where the problem comes. Not reading about anything about the pharmacology. So when you're giving an induction drug and you don't know about the dose, that is really bad, isn't it? So what is the dose of etomidate?
0.3 to
0.15.
0.3 to 0.8.5 milligram per
Okay,
kg body
0.3
weight.
to 0.5, right? So if it's 0.3 milligram, how much milligram you gonna give? 15 milligram, right? 15 milligram etomidate. Why do you prefer etomidate?
It is the most cardiostable um, anesthetic drug. It
Okay,
causes
it is
least hemodynamic alteration.
Okay, fine. What are the disadvantages of giving etomidate?
So the disadvantages of etomidate is it causes adrenal gland suppression.
Okay, adrenocortical suppression. Most important, most common disadvantage of giving etomidate.
Epileptic.
No.
Involuntary
Anti-analgesic.
Myoclonus.
No myoclonus. No, that is not disadvantage, right? 25% of the patients tend to have severe pain on injection. Okay.
Anti-analgesic.
Which is very vital in this type of patients, because even that pain can produce severe tachycardia. So 25% of the patients tend to have severe pain, and there is high chance of post-op nausea, vomiting. So all these factors will trigger tachycardia, right? So that's the disadvantage of giving etomidate. And can you tell me why does it cause pain? It is basically the preservative ethylene glycol, which is present in the etomidate, that is causing pain, and it is 75% protein bound. Okay. Right. So etomidate 15 milligram has been given. Then
After giving etomidate and analgesic fentanyl
okay,
and
fentanyl.
muscle relaxant.
When I say, see, listen, when they're expecting you drug, they expect you the dose what you give, just to understand
1
whether you
microgram.
have. I don't want the 1 microgram. Tell me what dose you give. I've given the weight as 50 kgs. They expect you like that in the exam. Please again listen. So
Sir,
you are indirectly conveying that you know the dose. That's the main reason they're asking you like that.
50 to 75.
Tell me how much dose you give fentanyl for this patient. That's it.
Sir, 100.
100 mics. That's it. Just tell me in an absolute number. That is how they expect in the exam, right? So 15 milligrams Zetomyrate, 100 mics of fentanyl. Then
Then succinylcholine,
choline,
100 milligram.
100 milligram. Right. Succinylcholine is a muscle relaxant, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
It's a short-acting, non-depolarizing muscle relaxant.
Depolarizing muscle.
Okay.
relaxant.
Can it produce paralysis in the fetus?
The succinylcholine does not cross placenta.
Why?
This is a big molecule.
It has a quaternary structure.
Okay, so any ionized structure will not cross placenta. Okay, luckily all the muscle relaxant which we use, both depolarizing and non-depolarizing, they are all ionized molecules. That is the only reason they don't cross the placenta. Okay, factors affecting placental crossing. Okay, what are the factors which will determine how much amount of drug will cross the placenta? One.
Size of the drug molecule.
Okay, size, molecular size. Then
Electricity.
ionization.
Electricity. Ionization.
Tell it as ionization, not electricity, right? Ionization. Then lipid solubility, protein binding, pK of the drug, surface area, molecular weight. So these are the factors will determine whether a drug will cross the placenta or not. Luckily, any ionized molecule will not cross placenta because ionized are charged ions. Charged ions are water soluble, they're not lipid soluble. So that is why they can't cross the placental membrane. So that is why none of the muscle relaxants cross. Okay, good. So let's come back. So you're given succinylcholine. Then
And while giving the induction agent, we will give the cricoid pressure. Assistant will be giving cricoid pressure to prevent aspiration.
okay, cricket pressure is given, right? Then
After succinylcholine, we will wait for 60 to 90 seconds.
okay.
And after that, direct laryngoscopy. With
Okay, before that,
minimum-
anything you want to do before laryngoscopy?
Because
the
it's very
cricoid pressure will be maintained. Cricoid pressure throughout it will be maintained.
That is fine. That is
blunt-
maintained
to blunt the
before-
larynx.
before-
Intubation response to be con.
Yes, that's the most important thing. Okay, in this patient, it all plays a vital role. So how do you reduce the intubation response?
For intubation, to prevent intubation response, we can use the beta blocker esmolol or IV lignocaine or
Sulfate also can be used.
Okay, what is the
Magnesium.
why do you prefer esmolol?
so esmolol is a beta blocker. It will fulfill both the purposes. One is
There are so many
control
beta blockers, but why do you want to use esmolol? Vestral,
rapid
please be
deviation of
quiet,
the-
please. Vestral, please. Thank you. I'm begging you. Please be quiet. Why do you use esmolol when there are other beta?
Onset of action due to its onset of action and shorter duration of action.
Okay, it's ultra short acting. And what is the dose you give?
Sir, 150 microgram, 100 microgram per kg body weight.
Is it 100 microgram? Is it what given in the textbooks?
500.
It is
Sorry, 300, sorry, sir, 300 microgram per kg body weight.
It is 0.25 to 0.5 milligram per kg or 250 to 500 micrograms per kg. So this is the dose for esmolol. Okay, right. So how it is getting metabolized in the body? Why it is ultra short acting?
cholinesterase.
Please be quiet, others guys, please. Why esmolol is ultra short acting?
Sir, actually, I don't remember now.
Okay, it is because it is metabolized by the non-specific tissue esterase. Tissue esterase, it undergoes esterase metabolism. That is why it is acting only for shorter duration, right? Esmolol is given, you have intubated. Then What size tube you use?
Sir, we will prefer to use an undersized tube like 7 millimeter internal diameter endotracheal tube.
Okay, you want to use 7 size tube. Perfect.
Seven.
But prefer 6.5 have in
Six.
hand when you need, right? So you are intubated. What is next?
After intubation, we will check for the tube position.
Okay, inflate the cuff, check the tube position. Then,
After inflating the cuff, we'll check the tube position and remove the cricoid pressure. And
okay,
then we
so
will fix
inflate the
tube.
cuff, check the tube position, check the ETCO2, everything is fine, then release the cricoid pressure. Good, excellent. So you have released the cricoid pressure. How are you going to maintain? You're connecting the ventilator. How are you going to maintain it?
And for maintenance of the patient, we will give oxygen nitrous oxide and the inhalational agent.
Okay,
Combination
inhalation
inhalation
agents.
sevoflurane.
Okay, is it a correct combination for this patient? For you forgot your hemodynamic goals.
No, sir. In this patient, we will not give nitrous oxide because this patient has pulmonary hypertension.
Okay, so nitrous oxide is
Yes,
going to
oxygen and-
trigger
Yes,
high
pulmonary
vascular
hypertension.
constriction. Okay, just be conscious when you're answering, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, good. So you're going to oxygen air combination. You're going to use inhalational
Inhalation
sevoflurane.
agent.
Okay, so this patient is 50 kg. What is the tidal volume?
यार
you
मेरा
have?
ये तो ऑन हो जाए
What tidal volume you fix for this patient?
Oh, sir, 400 to 500 ml.
Tell
tidal
me
volume.
when I say a number, tell me what tidal volume you're going to put for this patient.
Tidal volume, sir, 500 ml.
You want to put 500 ml, right? Which is roughly 10 ml per kg, right? What is the disadvantages of giving 600 ml? And what is the disadvantages of giving 300 ml?
Sir, both hypoxia and hypercarbia both are deleterious for this patient. If we give
Okay.
under volume, then the patient may get.
Let's assume I'm keeping a respiratory rate of 18. Then the minute ventilation is going to be good. ETCO2 is going to be the normal range, isn't it? What is the problem of giving a low tidal volume? What is the problem of giving a high tidal volume?
In the low tidal volumes, there will be more collapsibility of the
Right, no worries.
alveoli.
I'll tell you, no problem, right? So the pulmonary vascular resistance,
Hello?
pulmonary vascular resistance is increased when you give a low tidal volume, as well as it is increased when you give a high tidal volume. So what happens, when you give a high tidal volume, like more than 600, the alveoli are going to get bigger. So when the alveoli is bigger, it will compress the alveolar capillaries. So these alveolar vessels are compressed, that eventually results in pulmonary hypertension and pulmonary congestion. This is with regard to high tidal volume. On the paradox, when you ventilate them with a low tidal volume, like 300 ml, what happens? Lung size is going to be small. The pulmonary capillaries are not affected. Whereas the capillaries which are coming close to the bronchus, okay, these are all called extrapulmonary capillaries. These capillaries are kept open by the stretching of the lung. So when the stretch is poor, these capillaries get squashed. That again increases the pulmonary vascular resistance. So this is extrapulmonary vessels. This is pulmonary vessels. So both low tidal volume as well as high tidal volume compresses the pulmonary vessels and extrapulmonary vessels, that eventually results in pulmonary vascular resistance or high pulmonary vascular resistance. So that is why you have to use an ideal tidal volume. Okay. Never gives low tidal volume, never give high tidal volume. Okay. Good. Excellent. Right. So you have done, the procedure is over. And what are the analgesia option under general anesthesia?
Sir, analgesia, for analgesia purpose, we can give opioid fentanyl
Okay.
or
Opioid.
in intermittent doses or fentanyl infusion.
Okay.
Or the other options are we can along with general anesthesia we can give epidural analgesia, which can be maintained in the postoperative period
As I
also.
said, patient was refusing regional. So you about regional.
As sir, patient was refusing spinal.
Can you give NSAIDs in this patient?
No, sir, because the patient has already pulmonary hypertension.
Okay, what is the role of pulmonary hypertension in NSAIDs? Has they got any relationships? Okay, before the delivery of the baby, don't give NSAIDs. Why? Anyone else?
Nutrient vasoconstriction.
Wait, ductus arteriosus block.
Ductus arteriosus, okay? So ductus arteriosus closure is prevented when you give NSAIDs, it can get accumulated, okay? So don't give NSAIDs before the delivery. Once the baby is delivered, you can give NSAIDs, right? Then, apart from NSAIDs, what can you give for intraoperative pain relief? Opiates is given.
Paracetamol.
Paracetamol,
IV paracetamol.
IV paracetamol can be given. Then,
Tab block. Ketamine.
blocks, okay? Regional blocks.
Blocks.
Tab blocks or quadratus lumborum block can be
Yeah,
given.
blocks.
Okay. Now, procedure is started. The baby is delivered. The surgeon is asking you to give oxytocin. How will you give oxytocin in this patient?
Sir, in this patient, we will give smaller and intermittent doses of oxytocin.
What is mean by smaller intermittent dose? I don't understand. So never give bolus, okay? Never give bolus. Generally, in all pregnant patients, when the baby is delivered, we give oxytocin bolus. So in particularly mitral stenosis patient, particularly when there is a severe stenosis, don't give bolus, give it as an infusion. Dilute 40 units of oxytocin in 1 liter of ringer lactate and run at 40 to 80 units per hour, right? So that is how the oxytocin has to be given, because oxytocin increases severely the pulmonary vascular resistance. Also, it decreases the systemic vascular resistance. Both are very bad combinations to produce pulmonary congestions. Okay, so that is the most important thing you have to remember when you're giving oxytocin. So prostaglandins, particularly the methotrexate, are just to be avoided because they can increase the pulmonary vascular resistance. Good. That's the end of the class. Any questions you got? Good job. Good performance. Good.
Excuse me, sir. I have one question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, regarding labor analgesia, when it was when we are discussing about the bottom pain.
Yeah.
Why isn't we are able to block the pudendal nerve in under regional anesthesia?
The problem, in the sacral part of the spinal cord, the fatty tissues will be so huge, okay, and the epidural compartment. So that fatty tissues prevents the distribution, as well as the facial separation is very high in the sacral zone of the spinal cord. So that prevents the blockage of all the nerves. Secondly, you are putting a catheter at L4, L5 level, right? And say, for example, if I placing 5 centimeter of catheter inside, the tip will be roughly around T2 or L2 level. So when you give a 10 ml, it can glow up to T10 level. It can come up to S1 or S2. So in order to block S3, S4, you need a larger volume. One thing. Second thing, the fatty tissues are more on the facial compartment separations are more on the sacral segment. That prevents adequate blockage of the lowest sacral part.
The same reason is when the patients are supposed to go TURBT, the obturative nerve block.
Exactly. No, the problem in the TURBT is
Obturator nerve.
it is obturator nerve, not a sacral. Okay, the obturator nerve runs close to the anterolateral border of the bladder. So you are blocked at the spinal cord level. Whereas when you stimulate the cautery with the bladder wall here, it will produce a twitch.
Isn't it blocked by the spinal anesthesia, sir?
You're blocked here. Say, for example, if the nerve is here, let's take a supraclavicular brachial plexus, C5, C6, C7, right? And these are the ulnar nerve and the radial nerve. You are blocking here, right?
Yes.
So when you stimulate the nerve here, it doesn't conduct. When you stimulate the nerve here, it will conduct.
Okay, thank you.
Because you are stimulating the obturator nerve distal to the spinal, right?
Yes, sir, yes.
So when you give a supramaximal current to the nerve, it will stimulate the muscle.
Yes, thank you.
Any other
Sir,
question?
I have a query, sir.
Yes, please.
If the patient is undergoing general anesthesia and we are not putting any pain prevention method for post-operative period, then
Okay.
how we will prevent the pulmonary edema as the patient is in
Pain
severe
management in the
stenosis?
post-operative is again multimodal. You can give blocks, you can give opiates, you can give NSAIDs, you can give paracetamol. You can give alpha-2 agonist. So you have to use all these drug combinations and give as much as pain relief as possible.
Okay, sir.
Sir, one question. How much dose do we give in saddle block?
Saddle block is just when you're giving a spinal, it will be 1.5 to 2 milligram of 0.5% heavy bupivacaine.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, if the INR is raised in the scenario given,
Yeah.
and we don't have PCC available at hand, then what should we do?
We don't have PCC.
Yes,
Then
sir.
you have to give FFP only. That's the only choice. You have to give FFP injection vitamin K.
Okay, sir.
Most important thing, wait for minimum 6 to 8 hours to do any invasive procedures.
Sir,
Yeah.
hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, apart from oxytocin, can we use any other uterotonics?
Uterotonics, what are the uterotonics available? Methyl ergometrin, syntropentrin is contraindicated.
Oh,
Okay.
no. Okay, sir.
You can use prostaglandin I2. You can use prostaglandin F2 alpha is contraindicated, whereas remaining prostaglandins can be used.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. Is that clear, this case?
Yes, sir.
Because there are a lot more to discuss. I've just minimized what is needed for the exam, like risk predictors, pregnancy risk predictors, mortality predictors. I don't think so. They'll go you to that extent in the exam. Shall we stop here?
Yes.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.